Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin sayyidina Maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Billahi al-aliyyil azim. My dear, thank you, Prof. Abdelaziz. We start our session today by recite Surah Al-Fatihah.
Alhamdulillah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear all audience today, International Institute of Islamic Education, Islamic Thought and Civilization, ISTAC, is pleased to welcome all of you to ISTAC-IIUM Ramadan Forum. Inshallah, our topic today is Ramadan and Spirituality for Human Wellbeing and Quality Life. We bring our great scholars to share their wisdom on this forum. We have 4 panelists. Firstly, Professor Emeritus, Professor Datuk Osman Bakar. They are well-known scholars. For the time being, he is a chairholder for the Al-Ghazali Chair of Epistemology and Civilization Studies in ISTAC, and he has so many experience before Prof. Osman Bakar is Emeritus Professor of Philosophy at the University Malaya, the Chair Professor and Director for Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Center for Islamic Studies, Brunei Darussalam. Inshallah, we will get the wisdom from our professor, inshallah. Next, our beloved Professor Dr. Abdelaziz Berghout, Dean of ISTAC. As we know, Professor Abdelaziz Berghout served as a full professor of Islamic Studies and Civilization at Kuliah of Islamic Religious Knowledge and Human Science, and now he is a Dean for International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, ISTAC. Number 3, our Associate Professor Dr. Lihanna Borhan, Director of Office of Knowledge for Change and Advancement, ACA. Prof. Lihanna Borhan is an Associate Professor in the Department of Psychology, Kuliah of Islamic Religious Knowledge and Human Science, and she is a scholar in psychology and human development. And thirdly, or last but not least, is Assistant Professor Dr. Raudlotul Firdaous bin Fatah Yasin. Currently, she is a Deputy Director for Center for Islamisation at IUM, and she is from Kuliah of Islamic Religious Knowledge and teaching in Quran and Sunnah department. My dear professors, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, you are with me, Assistant Professor Muhammad Abdelaziz bin Abdullah, Deputy Dean of Student Development and Community Engagement, as moderator for this evening event. On behalf of this organizing committee, I would like to welcome to everyone to this online platform. Selamat datang, ahlan wa sahlan. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished audience, now we are in Ramadan, and our topic today on Ramadan and spirituality for human well-being and quality life. I would like to direct to Datuk Osman, Prof. Osman. From your perspective, how we can address this topic, which is Ramadan and spirituality for human well-being and quality life. I respectfully call upon Emeritus Professor Dr. Osman Bakar to present his wisdom. Please welcome, Prof.
Thank you, Brother Moderator. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wa mursalin Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. How many minutes are you giving me to speak?
Everyone will talk about 15 minutes.
15 minutes, all right. So, yes, the fellow panelists, Professor Abdelaziz and the others, and students and distinguished attendees. Regarding the link between Ramadan and spirituality, that is, we know that very well. Ramadan is a spiritual month, more than any other month, precisely because of a number of things. But the most important thing, of course, is the fasting, entire month, the whole of Ramadan. We can say that fasting is the heart of Ramadan. Ramadan and fasting are not the same or not equal because there are other things associated with Ramadan, not just fasting. Certainly, a feature of Ramadan is we read a lot, or we read the Quran. We try, if possible, to finish the whole of the Quran. We, of course, during these last 10 days of our fasting, the month of Ramadan, we can see that Ramadan is also an integrated month of integration. So, in a sense, the different dimensions of our human being integrated through fasting, praying, and through charitable activities. So all that integrated. So we can say that Ramadan is also the month which offers opportunity for human integration, to be human in the real sense of the word. Totally human in the sense of the word. And likewise, we cannot equate Ramadan with fasting, because there's also fasting outside Ramadan. And soon after, in Shawwal, of course, we had that famous 6-day fast. But in fact, throughout the year, there are days when we do fasting. So it's not that the two, Ramadan and fasting, are not equal, but I would assert that Ramadan is the heart. Fasting is the heart of Ramadan. Now, certainly Ramadan offers, especially through fasting, I emphasize on fasting, fasting offers the excellent opportunities for developing our spiritual character, and of course this precisely because our fasting is revealed. Fasting is a practical wisdom revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we know in Islamic tradition, when I say practical wisdom, and hikmah al-amali, which means that it's meant to change things from one condition to another, from one state to another. And this is what Ramadan is offering us, the opportunity to transform ourselves. So this is about spiritual transformation. Hopefully, after Ramadan, we will be a better person, spiritually, intellectually, even physically, because as we have to say that we have a kind of triple. We have triple cleansing of the body, cleansing of the mind, cleansing of the heart. So Ramadan provides the opportunities to carry out this cleansing. Even we all have cars, we all have cars. So the cars, we send regularly our cars to the workshop, to service the car. Why? What? The car has to be serviced, because if you don't, then the car is going to kaput, it will not be quickly just gets bad and worse and worse. So same thing with our body. As Al-Ghazali said, our body is the vehicle of the soul. So during the earthly career of the soul, the body has to be taken care of. And now we are claiming that the health of our body can be guaranteed by fasting. Fasting, in the worst case, keeps us and keeps our body healthy. Now, if you look at the Ramadan, the Muslim Ramadan, the Ramadan of the Quran, it is something which is described, which is something which is tailored in terms of the how many days, the fact that on this per month, from what time to time, from dawn to dusk, in details, both in principle and detail, it shows that the Ramadan fasting is a kind of formula. It's kind of formula that is able to transform ourselves spiritually. Of course, the first thing is about the well-being of the self, the individual. That is, of course, the first concern of Ramadan. In other words, when the Quran says that Ya ayyuhallazina amanu kutiba alaikumus siyam kama kutiba alal ladzina min qablikum annakum tattaqun la'allakum tattaqun. That is the overall goal of fasting. That is the ultimate purpose of fasting. Taqwa. To attain taqwa. Taqwa is a term, one single term that describes so many things. And I would say that it is right to translate, to transform this taqwa as God consciousness. But God consciousness has 3 dimensions. The 3 major dimensions of taqwa: the fear of Allah, the love of Allah, the knowledge of Allah. Makhafah, muhibbah, and marifah. The 3 come together. Of course, this God consciousness emits of various levels. We are at different levels of God consciousness. The ideal will be that of the Prophet. So but the thing is, yes, while this the well-being of the individual is the first goal of fasting, the fruits of that Ramadan flow into the society, because we know very well that Ramadan, and this is fasting, is one of the pillars of Islam. Since Islam refuses to separate between the individual dimension and the society dimension, Islam is a religion that strikes that the wasatiyah, the harmony between the two, which means that the social benefits of fasting will also be shared, can be shared within a Muslim, with the whole of society. That is important for Muslims to realize that we fast, yes, for the sake of Allah, but the fruits of fasting are not only enjoyed by us, but also it's going to be enjoyed by the rest of society. Even, I would say that the planet Earth, nowadays we talk about, we just celebrate the Earth Day, but in other words, the other animals, the plants and so on, will share. They will share in the fasting of Ramadan, if only we realize. So the benefits of fasting should flow into society, should flow into for the whole planet Earth. All right. So I think it is this is important. In the time left for me that I have, I think I want to refer to the, of course, the question of the dynamics of that fasting Islam, all right? And I'll refer to Al-Ghazali, the question of the three qualities of fasting. This is important. We have to talk about well-being. That well-being can be generated if we didn't do properly. If you don't fast, if you don't carry a fasting in the right way. So Ramadan offers us the opportunity to practice fasting of the highest quality possible. So Al-Ghazali talks about three qualities of fasting. The fasting of the majority, the fasting in the sense that it's limited to abstention, as to abstain from food, drinks, and sex. Right? But human being is not just the body, but also the mind. So what about fasting of the mind? Are we practicing that? Even before that question of the rest of the body, it's not the stomach, the sexual organ. What are the rest of our bodily organs, especially the tongue? This is the root of problems in society, the vices of the tongue. So this is a time, this month, when we should refrain, we should abstain from lying, from backbiting. This is fasting of the higher quality. And in the long term, this is important. If you want to produce well-being, societal well-being, then fasting with this is attention in the sense that the fasting of the ear, the fasting of the tongue, the fasting of the eyes, all these will contribute to the well-being. And then, of course, the highest, of course, not the kawas, it's the fasting of the elite, yeah, this fasting of the heart. This is very important because the diseases, we have this question of diseases of the heart. In other words, the idea of fasting of the heart is so that we can overcome the negative qualities, so many qualities, like the question of arrogance and sincerity, the question of related to the mind, the question of falsehood, right? We live in a world in which the fake news are common things. That's against the very spirit of our human spirituality. Yeah? So we hope during the month of Ramadan, in these 30 days, it will lead to contribution. If we contribute to the lessening, of course, we can expect to in the entire month, in just 1 month. But if every year, in 1 month, we consistently do what is required of the 3 types of fasting, then inshallah, we individually will arrive at the well-being, but more than that, that well-being will be shared by others, inshallah. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof, for your great wisdom shared with us. So we can say that here, for the fasting, it's not only fasting, but it is a holy hunger. And the taqwa and the garment of taqwa. So as you share with us, what a big difference between holy hunger and hunger for worldly purpose, if only we know. And also fasting of the body, mind, and heart is what the secret of integral health is all about. Alhamdulillah, thank you very much for your great wisdom. Next, I would like to ask Prof. Lihanna As we know, Ramadan trains Muslims in managing our mental and psychology, and where we can live food and drink, which are our essential needs for the whole daily or for the whole daytime for a month. As an expert in psychology, how do you look the important role of this Ramadan training in avoiding Muslims from conducting bad deeds, not only in Ramadan, but also in the other months? So I have the pleasure to call upon Dr. Lihanna. The floor is yours.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nick Saiful. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, let me share my screen first. Yeah, which is actually interesting that the question that you asked pretty much also is what I would like to share, even though you did not share the question beforehand, right? Okay, so looking at the way I see it, I mean, this is the one, excuse this one. This is the one that, the ayat that Osman, and we all know this ayat. This is just to share so that we are all aware. I know you're all aware of this ayat. So, and since that Osman have actually talked about this ayat, I'm just going to just keep it there, but focusing again the part where we're talking about la'allakum tattaqun, but not really so much at this point looking at what is taqwa, as what that Osman have talked about that. But I would like to then link this to, this is just actually thinking about what is the angle I'm going to share with all these esteemed people here. You know, and I would like to just share this point. And I was reading the Quran, and I came across this too. In Ash'ara, right? You know, the day when, okay, يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم. So what is this qalb salim? So as a psychologist, this is the part where I would really like to really be able to work on this more. What is the Islamic concept of qalb salim, and how do we strive for that? You know, as humans, how do we strive for that? Okay, so the idea that of course there's a whole lot of literature out there on qalb salim, and you people are more expert than me, but I do want at this point to just focus on the idea of a clean heart and this being free from spiritual disease, which is what you asked me about just now, right? This fasting, and what also that Osman talked about. You know, we fast, not just we abstain, not just from food, but also from bad language, from bad mouthing other people, from this. But these things are not just about action, but this comes about, it's easier when our heart is cleaner, inshallah. Okay? Because it is very easy to say all these things, to, you know, theoretically say all these things, but our actions would defy what we say when the heart itself isn't free from this spiritual disease. So there would come a point in time where we're supposed to really not say things about others when it's not needed, but you know, we think, oh well, we just have to, because we're going to need this to teach others, especially in this current world where social media, everybody wants to be keyboard warriors. So now we have another cleansing. This clean heart can also be seen, should also be manifested, not just the physical tongue, but also the tips of our fingers. That's actually now ourselves online there. So that's where I see where the fasting and Ramadan itself, actually, not just fasting, like that Osman said just now, Ramadan is not just about fasting. Okay, these are just my general frame how I think about this. So we use the Ramadan is this intensive training period. Okay. And then we have, so during this, all these things that we're supposed or encouraged to be doing, well, some of course is obligatory. Okay. But the others are more things that the Tarawih, for example, the Tadabbur, the Tadarus are things that we tend to do more during Ramadan and than in other months. Okay. But I would also like us to think about the things that we are also supposed to be training ourselves are not just this specific ibadah, but these things are also supposed to help us become more conscientious, more frugal, to be more charitable, inshallah. And this becomes, and all that to lead to this well-being. Okay. A well-being that is more beyond mental health, but also this is the term that I got from Prof. Kamal, of course, as-sihat al-aqliyah wa nafsiyah. Okay, so and the way that I see where the spirituality comes in, it becomes a mediator of the things that we do, and then the end point of that to get to this well-being. So it becomes easier. That's the part of the taqwa. Yes. When we're also connected to Allah, where our spiritual being is also there, not just our physical being, not just our mental, okay, not just our cognitive, but also our the spiritual part is also there. So, people, when we think, for example, we think about Saum, we think about Ramadan, and people talk about fasting, and then people say, so it's all about food. It's the abstinence of food and drink. And so many people then become obsessed with food, which should be the other way around. Yes, the idea of this training is for us to put less emphasis on the food that we eat, instead of actually becoming more obsessed. But that is human nature. Sometimes that is human nature, actually. Sometimes because something is taken away from you, we become more obsessed with it. We want it more. But that is the training of Ramadan. So how do we overcome this? Okay, so that's the challenge in Ramadan. Okay. Allah definitely knows that, as human beings, the more we say no, okay, we see this in young children, we see this in teens, we see this with adults. The more people say no, the more we would like to do. Okay, right? Don't jump, and then the child jump. Okay, so now during Ramadan, don't eat. So we keep thinking about all this food. Okay, but inshallah, when we have the spirituality thinking that, okay, why are we asked to fast? Okay, and that has to come from deep inside us for this to become a successful spiritual training that comes deep inside us, rather than the stock answers that we get in our, not that the stock answers are wrong. Okay, but we now have to go beyond the stock answers that we were taught when we were in school, right? That some is so that we will, we become aware of what it feels like to feel hungry and things like that. Yes, okay, but obviously we need now to go beyond that. So what do we do with this feeling of hunger? Do we then feed it to satiation? Do we then overfeed it? Or do we actually say, now, you know what? I am going to control this. Okay, this is not something I started voluntarily doing, but it is not going to control me. I am going to be controlling this. And when we start expanding this in other aspects of our life, inshallah, that's where the well-being comes in. You know, we now do not, when we're looking at people shopping, for example, is going to be Eid very, very soon. And everybody is like talking about how, they have a shop, or whether they have shop for their clothes or for their tudung, for the hijab, for their shoes, and all these other things that they're shopping. We're supposed to be actually practicing frugality now. So that's the challenge also. Who controls this? We're supposed to now keep controlling this, so that when we see others buying all these things, we will go, it's okay. It's okay. We don't need all these things. We can make do. The past 2 years, we have been making do with a lot less preparation for Ramadan, for Eid, with what we had before. And suddenly there's a little bit of sadness to see that we seem to have forgotten these lessons in frugality and conscientiousness that we were forced to deal with the past 2 years with COVID-19. Now everybody seems to be going all out and using words like, I'm going to make up for the past 2 years, instead of actually learning from the past 2 years and using those lessons to now see what is actually important during Ramadan, what is actually important in our life, what is important in our well-being. I hope we start talking about this again, and we start looking at what is the core of our existence here. When we don't have all these material things, when we have to actually just make do with what is there. And then that, inshallah, over time will lead to this well-being. So I see this, quality. Okay, I see this also as continuous improvement. That's why it's not just one Ramadan, but inshallah, we keep going better every year. If it's okay to not have a perfect Ramadan, but each Ramadan to become better than the year before, as long as we have that in our mind and we keep striving for that. And after every year, every other, that's the intensive part, of course. This very intensive month, and I'm sure that over the next 11 months, our activities related to what we have talked about just now in Ramadan will start going down, and then there's Ramadan again. Okay, and then we'll start going up again. But the next time when it goes down, it will not go down to the level it was before. Okay, it will still. So we can still see this continuous improvement, inshallah, so that our life over time will also become better, will be happier, and have the well-being that we look for, and have that quality life that we are searching fi dunya wal akhirah, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lihanna, for your great sharing, talking about Qalbun Salim, akhlaq, and may Allah protect us all from the evil of our sight and our hearing, our tongue, our heart, and the evil of our desire, inshallah. Okay, next I would like to go through Dr. Raudlotul Firdaous. In hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-mu'minu al-qawi khairun wa ahabbu ila Allah min al-mu'min al-da'if. Al-mu'min al-qawi khairun wa ahabbu ila Allah min al-mu'min al-da'if. Unfortunately, some Muslims use fasting as an excuse for not being productive. And this also opens the door for bad perception among non-Muslims, especially toward Ramadan and toward fasting itself. In your opinion, in your wisdom, how do the tarbiyah Ramadaniyah can help Muslims in building a well-balanced personality in all aspects in the light of Quran and Sunnah. I respectfully call upon Dr. Rabah to share her wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our respectful moderator this afternoon, Dr. Nik Muhammad Saiful Aziz bin Abdullah, our Honorable Dean of ISTAC, Professor Abdelaziz Berghout, respectful speaker, Professor Emeritus Datuk Osman Bakar, and my beloved colleague, Senior Associate Professor Dr. Lihanna. Thank you very much, our beloved audience, listeners, viewers. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, before I share some, not my wisdoms actually, I am citing some wisdoms derived from Risalah An-Nur by Imam Badi'un Zaman Said Nursi in responding to the question being addressed by our moderator this afternoon. And first of all, maybe we would like to take a look once again to the hadith that was cited just now from Sahih Muslim about when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that He loves the believers who are strong better than those who are da'if, or the believers who are strong physically and spiritually are more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as compared to those who are da'if. So while looking into the question and with this limited time, I would like to bring our attention to the fact that human being, as mentioned by Associate Professor Dr. Lihanna just now, we actually consist of the physical entity and the spiritual life. So both of them are actually going together, living together in this temporary life, and we need to create a balance between both so that we can have a well-balanced personality, especially as a result of the tarbiyah of Ramadan. And when we take a look at the wisdoms and hikmah behind the fasting of the month of Ramadan, especially from the perspective of Risalah An-Nur by Imam Badi'un Zaman Said Nursi, there are altogether 9 important wisdoms. And in relation to our question this afternoon, I would like to highlight 4 of them, whereby we can see that all of them are related to the spiritual dimension, in addition of the physical dimension. So first of all, we will take a look, very quick look, inshallah, to answer the question. Is a spiritual health, whereby fasting will train the instinctual soul. Secondly, fasting will discipline of evil commanding self, or what we call it in Arabic as a nafs or a shahawat. And Allah has explained about the reality of shahawat in the Quran, where Allah mentions Zuyina lin-nasi hubbu shahawati minan nisa. It's quite a lengthy ayah, but it describes and it exposed to the human being on the types of desires, lusts, and what the human being love to have. This is what we call it as nafs. And in Malay, we do have the same term. We call it as nafsu shahawat. And we will see how the fasting is actually discipline of this kind of evil commanding self, nafs shahawat. Thirdly, it heals physical and spiritual diet, especially, and fourthly, shattering the instinctual soul's imaginary dominicality. So the question addressed was about how the Quran and Sunnah guide us to have the best tarbiyah of Ramadan. I would like to cite only 3 verses from Surah Al-Ma'arij, whereby there are so many verses in the Quran, which have been shared earlier by our noble speakers, as well as many other verses in many other surah. Allah SWT has clearly explained and described the nature of human being, including the natural instinct of human soul. And I've chosen here only 3 verses because these are the most relevant, I believe, to respond to the question addressed by our moderator. And if you would like to describe all of the verses, then we will need more than 2 hours, right? So we have here the first ayah said, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Innal insana khuliqa halu'a. Indeed, humankind was created impatient. Idha massahu sharru jazu'a. It distressed when touched with evil. Wa idha massahu al-khayru manu'a. And withholding when touched with good. Means that human being, whenever it is touched with a test, with a challenge, with an evil, it will be distressed easily. But when it is tested with ni'mah, with wealth, with health, then it will normally withhold. It will become greed. So this is part of the natural instinct of human soul, which has been enshrined in the Quran. And we will take a look at the first part, that is training the instinctual soul. Because the instinctual soul of human being once and always considers itself to be free and independent. According to its nature, it even desires an imaginary dominicality and to act as it pleases. Let's ask our heart, ask our soul. Yeah? It does not want to admit that it is being sustained and trained through innumerable bounties, especially if it possesses worldly wealth and power, and if heedlessness or ghafla in Arabic language also encourages it, it will consume God's bounties like a seizing, thieving animal. Quite tough, but then we will see that it is true. If you ask our one desire right now, what would you like to have? Then don't ask the mind, don't ask the heart, because the heart will direct you to a positive answer and the mind will direct you to a rational response. But when we ask the desire, when we ask the soul, when we ask the nafs, a shahwat, then the answer will be endless. It will bring people to the heedlessness. Thus, in the month of Ramadan, actually, the instinctual soul of everyone, from the richest to the poorest, may understand that it does not own itself, but it is totally owned. It is not free, but it is a slave. We are only abd, and we have robbed. So we have the concept of ubudiyah, and at the same time, we have the Lord as the rububiyah. It understands that if it has received no command, it may not do the simplest and easiest thing. It cannot even stretch out its hand for water. Its imaginary dominicality or malika is therefore shattered. It performs its worship and begins to offer thanks, its true duty. So that's right. We have we have cold water, we have a cold drink in the refrigerator, but we know during the day of Ramadan, it is impossible for us to consume the drink. So we have to be patient. And here we realize that actually we do not own ourselves, but we belong to a Rob who will set the rule and set the regulation. And we will never be able to go against the regulation. And secondly, it improved the conduct of instinctual soul and giving up its rebellious habits. So if we take a look for a while into our instinctual soul, it is by its nature, it rebelling. It has a rebellious habit because of heedlessness. So the human soul forgets itself. It cannot see its utter powerlessness, wants and deficiency, and it does not wish to see down. Yes, it's true. It's very difficult for us to recognize our weakness, isn't it? Because most of the time, if we ask our rebellious habits, if we ask our instinctual soul, we will always say, I am good, I am perfect, I am excellent. But when we go to the rational aspect, when we go into the iman aspect, then we realize, yes, we are weak. Yes, we do have weaknesses. We do have errors because we are human beings. And then we will realize that how weak we are and how this weakness subject to transience and to disasters, nor the fact that it consists merely of flesh and bones. Then if we take a look at ourselves, we are just flesh, bones and skin, and which we can actually quickly decay and fall apart. Simply it assaults the world as though it possessed a body made of steel and imagine itself to be undying and eternal. So the human being might throw itself on the world with intense greed and passionate attachment and love. It is captivated by anything that gives it pleasure or that profits it. Moreover, it forgets its creator. So this is the unfortunate part of many human beings, including the one who is talking right now. Yet we tend to forget about the creator who sustains it with perfect compassion. And people does not think of the consequence of its life in this world, neither the hereafter. Indeed, it wallows in dissipation or self-indulgence and misconduct. However, fasting in the month of Ramadan awakens even the most heedless and stubborn to their weakness, impotence, and want. Hunger makes them think of their stomachs, and they understand the need therein. They realize how unsound are their weak bodies and perceive how needy they are for kindness, rahmah, and compassion, rahim. So they abandon the soul sparrow-like despotism, and recognizing their utter importance and want, perceive a desire to take refuge at the divine court that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They prepare themselves to knock at the door of mercy with the hands of thankfulness. So long as heedlessness has not destroyed their hearts, that's it. So when we started to feel hungry, we started to feel thirsty, we started to feel tired during the day while fasting for the whole month of Ramadan, we started to remember Allah. We start to pray to Allah, Ya Allah, please reward me with more patience. Ya Allah, please give me strength. I want to continue this fasting. Ya Allah, please bless me. Please grant me with your reward for being patient, Ya Allah. then we will receive the strength from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we'll get back our power, and we'll be energetic as if it is a normal day, as if you are not fasting, and we can witness that event has been there in our history. So the last part, actually, before I go further, don't forget that Badr battle was taking place in the month of Ramadan, where the Muslims were totally fasting, but mashallah, Allah grant them with success. So how does it happen? It is through our iman. So Ramadan fasting, it is a healing physical and spiritual diet of the most important kind. When man's instinctual soul eats and drinks just as it pleases, never fast at all, it is both harmful for man's physical life from the medical point of view, and when it holds itself on everything it counters, whether licit or illicit, it quite simply poisons his spiritual life. Further, it is difficult for such a soul to obey the heart and the spirit. It willfully takes the reins into its own hands, and the man cannot ride it. It rather rides men. But by means of fasting in Ramadan, it becomes accustomed to a sort of diet. It tries to discipline itself and learns to listen to command. So actually, it is a physical diet. It is also a spiritual diet, and it will help us a lot actually in sustaining a healthy lifestyle even after the Ramadan. We know that having a physical diet is a very suffering, those who are on diet. But when we have the spiritual diet come together, it will provide and it will bring us more strength, inshallah, in facing it. And furthermore, the factory of the stomach has many workers, and many of the human organs are connected to it. If the instinctual soul does not take a rest from activity during the day or for a month, it makes the factory's workers and those organs forget their particular duties. It busies them with itself so that they remain under its tyranny. Also, it confuses the rest of the organs in the human body with the stem of the factory's machinery. It continuously attracts their attention to itself, making them temporarily forget their exalted duties. It is because of this that for centuries, those closest to Allah have accustomed themselves to discipline and to eating and drinking little in order to be perfected. And the last one is shattering the instinctual soul's imaginary dominicality and making known its worship. The instinctual soul does not want to recognize its sustainer. I'm talking about the instinctual soul. We are not, again, communicating with our heart. We are not communicating with our rational, but we are now dealing with the instinctual soul. It wants its own lordship like Pharaoh. However much torment it suffers, it retains that vein. Hunger, however, destroys it. Hence, fasting in Ramadan strikes direct blows at the soul's Pharaoh-like front, shattering it. It demonstrates its importance, weakness, and want. It makes it realize that it is only a slave. I think that's for my sharing. I think time's up as well. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And I mean, my apology for any shortcomings from my part as a human being. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Raudlotul, Dr. Firdaous, for the inspiring and the great sharing. Tarbiyah Ramadaniyah can help Muslims in building the well-balanced personality in all aspects of life in the light of Quran and Sunnah. Dr. shared 9 important points, which is among of them is shattering, the last one, shattering the essential souls, imaginary dominicality. Okay, 9 main points. So without explanation, without addition from me, we ask Allah to make our soul obedient and purify it. And Allah is the best one to purify our soul, and Allah is the guardian and the Lord. Allahumma ati nufusana taqwaha wa zakkiha anta khairu man zakkaha anta waliyuha maulaha.
Amen.
Okay, professors, ladies and gentlemen, now we go to our beloved Prof. Dr. Abdelaziz. I want to ask how Muslim should implement the systematic times and self-management which has been practiced in Ramadan into other months of the whole year. so that we can achieve a high quality of life. How do Muslim scholars look at the role of Ramadan in fasting and in strengthening Muslim spirituality? And this topic is open. I call upon Prof. Abdelaziz to share his wisdom. Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Nick. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin. Dear Prof. Osman, Dr. Lihanna, Dr. Rauda, all our viewers and participants in the Zoom here and also in the YouTube, whether they are from Malaysia or elsewhere in the world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I think, alhamdulillah, we have had very great ideas and views from our colleagues here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to just have some footnotes or expansion of some ideas that have been mentioned by Prof. Osman or Dr. Lihanna or Dr. Rauda, so that we have a bigger picture of what is Ramadan all about and how Ramadan can help in achieving what we call quality life and enhancing the human well-being. In fact, when we developed the title, when we mentioned the title of this webinar or forum, we are talking about Ramadan and spirituality for human well-being. We think that Ramadan is something special in the structure of Islam, in the structure of the Islamic way of life. And when you look at Islam and the 5 pillars of Islam, talk about Salat, Shahada, Salat, Zakat, Sawm, and Hajj. And when you look at the structure of Iman or the articles of Iman in Islam, you will find we are talking about the 6 pillars: believe in God, believe in books, in Malaika, in prophethood, in Qada and Qadar, and in Akhirah. And when we look at the system of Ibadah in Islam, let's, for example, say almost all the Ibadah of Islam or the Ibadat in Islam will have a social impact, will have a social bearings on the community, on the society, as Ramadan does, as I'm going to explain to you shortly. So when we look at the Ibadat in Islam from the Sharia, the bigger picture of Sharia, we have Salat, for example, and Salat is every day, 5 times every day, plus the other things, the Sunan, the Nawafil, means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through this Sharia of Ibadat and Salat, He wants to tell us many things and deep things about spirituality, about the need for spirituality as human, as Khalifa on earth, as people who are living in this dunya, which is full of challenges, full of sin, the sin which comes from the nafs, from our own nafs, from our own soul, which comes from shaitan, which comes from the dunya and the desires of life, and the way how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created man in his fitrah, in his composition as a human who has the inclination towards good and bad. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this structure of ibadah in Islam, there is salat. That is actually a daily work and a daily station where you renew your relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you renew your commitment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also, plus salat, He give us the dua as another powerful tool. In fact, in many interpretation, salat itself is the dua. Dua salat, salatu is dua is the heart of Islam. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala urged us to do the dua. He's very close to us, and he says, if you do dua, I will answer your dua. Dua is another form of ibadah. In the structure of ibadah in Islam, we have also tawbat, another tool, powerful tool given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to Muslims to deal with the problems and issues and challenges and the sins that are happening, because in the end we are human. Plus this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also in this structure of ibadah give us zakat, which is tathir, which is cleaning your money, which is cleaning your wealth, which is cleaning your nafs and your soul also. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also gives us hajj, which is something which is a great ibadah, which has also, as I said, social implications for the ummah, for all the people, for the society, for the civilization. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all these things. And then in this structure of ibadah, you see Ramadan, which is something very special in Islam, whether in its length, the length of ibadah, the impact of ibadah, the nature of that ibadah. It's like a therapy. It's like, I can put it this way. Ramadan is like a clinic. You come to that clinic every year for 1 month to medicate yourself, to elevate yourself, to develop yourself, to improve yourself. So in Ramadan, all those types of ibadat which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in this structure of Islam, whether infaq or dua or tahajjud or qiyamul layl or praying or hajj or sadaqat, or all when this Ramadan comes, all these tools, all these techniques, all this type, they become gathered in a period of time which is 30 days. The most powerful training that a human can take in spirituality. The most powerful clinic which can solve our mental problems, psychological problems, moral problems, ethical problems. So in this perspective, or in this framework, Ramadan becomes something very special in the structure of Islam. And if I look at it from a bigger picture, I find that it's there for a purpose. 30 days of a very intensified training program every year for each and every Muslim who is baligh and who is healthy to do this. This is a very great ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And anyone who lose this ni'mah, who lose this training, and he will not get A in the end of the day, in the end of 30 days, he will not get A or A minus or succeed in this exercise, he will be considered a loser. He will be considered like a muflis. This is why you find some hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ says that من صام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. Anyone who fasts Ramadan with deep iman, great iman, and ihtisaban to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cleanse or clean his sin, the previous sin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says also in the Quran, as Prof. Osman read and Dr. Lihanna mentioned the ayah, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. So when we talk about fasting, Ramadan and fasting and spirituality, we are not only talking about rituals. The ritual means the refraining from eating or committing the other things which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasul mentioned in the hadith. This is one level. This is one simple level of understanding the impact of Ramadan and spirituality in Islam. Refraining from food is one level. Stopping from big biting, envying people, doing wrong things, saying wrong things, causing harm to others is another level in this spirituality of Ramadan, in this concept of Ramadan and spirituality for well-being. Ramadan goes beyond these rituals, beyond these aspects of food or senses, the use of our senses like eye or ears or tongue or hands. How do we use them for the purpose of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the purpose of Islam, for the purpose of serving and committing to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to do? So this Ramadan and spirituality, this station, this clinic of 30 days wants to take you to other levels, to higher levels as a human, as a Khalifa on earth who is supposed to do the mission of Ibadah, of building civilization, of building Hayatun Tayyibah, desirable life. We are here not just to think about those things. Yeah, they are basic, they are good, they are the rituals, they are the asas, they are the manifestation of Islam. But there is Iman, there is taqwa, there is ihsan. There are levels where the mu'min, the Muslim, needs to look at. And Ramadan and spirituality, these 30 days, this certificate of Ramadan, this clinic of Ramadan will give us that momentum. That's why we need as Muslims, when Ramadan if you read in the history of our Sahaba, you will find that Sahaba 6 months before Ramadan comes, they start preparing. They start preparing mentally, psychologically, in their mind, in their soul, in their spirit. Everybody was planning how. That's why I call pre-Ramadan. Then comes Ramadan. Then comes post-Ramadan. So they were preparing themselves earlier, so that when Ramadan, 2 months, 3 months earlier, when Ramadan comes, they grab the opportunity and they go for deep ibadah, deep shukr, deep tahajjud, deep salat, deep sadaqah, deep social community activities, deep sadaqah. They say Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he becomes much more generous in Ramadan. Generous means not only to give your money, you give your time, you give your support, you give your help, you with your words, with your ilm, with your character, with your behavior, you can do all these things. That's why I wanted to see, to talk about Ramadan in this perspective, where Ramadan becomes a very dynamic station and source of strength, of enlightenment, of spiritual support that Allah gives us every year. Imagine you lived 90 years, you have 80 years of this. Every year you have this to cleanse your heart, your mind, your soul, your character, to prepare for the next year. And next year will take you to the next year. And all this need to not only to be inward, but also outward to the ihsan level. Not only the ritual, not only the iman. Taqwa is very crucial. That's why I think, brothers and sisters, we need really to understand that this is a rare, great opportunity by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, as you mentioned, that this Quran, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. The month itself becomes sacred, become blessed, compared to other months, it has the psychology of Ramadan. Maybe another time we will talk about psychology of Ramadan because of the time. But this month become, the reward become triple, the shaitan and all are imprisoned by God. The nafs is restricted. Everything is done by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for me and for you and for us as Muslims to recharge that power, that energy of spirituality, of iman, of taqwa, of ihsan, that will take us the next year and the next year. Plus all this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there is Laylatul Qadr, and if you capture Laylatul Qadr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where it's like worshipping 1,000 months, means 83 years of reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the psychology which Ramadan creates, and the type of vision Ramadan gives to us as Khalifa on earth, not just fasting and focusing more on food and buying things and doing that's all good, that's all important, because in the end we are human. But Ramadan gives us a higher level of how we use our spirituality, and how spirituality in Islam becomes actually the foundation of our social activities, of our political activities, of our economic activities or behavior, of all our acts. Because if that's spirituality in Islam and has this social implication, then actually we need to aim for talking about things like how Ramadan and spirituality in Ramadan help us enhance our good governance, enhance our good leadership, enhance our good refrain from corruption, create a society of solidarity, create a society of helping one another, create a political system of justice, create an economic system of just distribution. So Ramadan and spirituality in Islam is more than the idea of the rituals. That's why I just end with this, saying that I think Ramadan and spirituality in Islam help us to enhance our quality of life and well-being. And we know quality of life and well-being in Islam includes all the aspects. As always in our university, we have the concept of the incense jatra, we have the concept of balanced man, where we talk about the mental, the social, the psychological, the intellectual, the spiritual, the all these aspects. This station of Ramadan has to help us develop in all these areas and create this balance. So I think we need to see Ramadan and this spirituality as a station to help develop, at least in the major cardinal values and ethics of Islam, like aiming to attain more wisdom, more balance in our life, more chastity in our life, more tayyibat, halalan tayyib. Because there is one hadith of Rasulullah in the meaning, how a Muslim doing dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he wants Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to answer him, but his food is from haram, his dress is from haram, his things are from haram. So we really need to understand this psychology of Ramadan and spirituality, and how spirituality in Islam is more than just ibadah and rituals, but it creates that balanced human who can do and who can change. And I think, to me, in the end, Ramadan and spirituality, if understood in this context, it's like a game changer. And that's how we have to educate our people pre-Ramadan. Inshallah, for next year, we can start helping people to understand how is this Ramadan a great opportunity. And with this, I thank you, and may Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Sorry, I took long time.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Prof. Abdelaziz, for the inspiring lecture and great sharing. Inshallah, we ask Allah to make our life, our religion easy for us. Inshallah, we ask Allah to set right for us to our world, and inshallah to make our life prone to perform all types of good, and to make our mouth, our death comfort for us from every evil. Respected professors, brothers and sisters, we are learning a lot from this productive and very informative, inspiring lecture. Inshallah, we hope we can have a series of this. Maybe in Shawwal we will create another forum in Shawwal. Inshallah, we will try to bring our scholars to share their wisdom with us. Inshallah. And before we end, thank you very much to Emeritus Professor Dr. Osman Bakar, Professor Dr. Abdelaziz, Assistant Professor Dr. Lihanna Borhan, and Assistant Professor Dr. Raudlotul Firdaous for their group, for a good sharing. And
Dr. Nick, if there are questions from our brothers or comments, we can have some time for that.
Okay, if anyone want to share and to ask, we open to the floor. We have a participant from Pakistan, from Cambodia, Safari, from Nigeria, and many all over the world. Inshallah.
Datuk Hamidu.
Datuk Hamidu with us. Please welcome Datuk.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikum. Thank you very much. Talking on Ramadan and spirituality, of course we get the strength when the Ramadan, the fasting has got a lot of meaning to us. But what my question is that, what is happening? Because usually, and I share with a few friends, why is it towards the end of Ramadan, we are not as sensitive, not as aware as like when we start in the beginning? You see, most of the mosques now, basically, even our IIUM, you are left with about 1.5 soft. You know, we used to be in the first week up to 7 soft. So where is it? It's always like this, you know. So I think we should get into this idea. Reading up, Al-Ghazali was saying that among the disease, among the thing that pulls us away from real Ibadah, putting ourselves in the position of a slave of Allah, one who has submitted to Allah, the Salim, Qalbu Salim, is that we have we don't have what they call it a long, our amal is not that long, you know, because he is saying that if one in sahur is already thinking of what he's going to eat in iftar tomorrow, then he has not learned the lesson of Ramadan. So we don't feel that we're going anytime. So I think this is among the reasons. So what's your comment on that? Jazakallah khair.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I channel this question to Prof. Osman related to the Al-Ghazali.
Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair.
To Brother Tahmidun.
Yes.
To put simply, the answer is fatigue. Fatigue, tiredness.
Okay.
Now, but fatigue is of two types. One is physical, another is spiritual.
Yeah.
So it's possible for someone to experience physical fatigue, but still spiritually strong, and that keeps it going. So basically here, the issue also means that the question of how to sustain yourself. Now, we talk about sustainability. Now, what is it that sustains? Well, I think from the Islamic perspective, it's both the question of the spirit and the knowledge. Having the right knowledge that will strengthen your faith, your belief, that what you are doing is the right thing to do, that it is good for us, so that we will struggle to overcome that physical fatigue. There's no doubt. I mean, we cannot deny that physical fatigue is a reality. The question now is how. And just in practice, what we see is that the majority just simply succumb to that fatigue, you know, and then without the spiritual motive. Without the spiritual motive, the right spiritual motive, then I think people just give up. That's why the mosque becomes more empty towards the end. That happens. Yeah, that's just simple response to, I think. So basically, how to sustain oneself until the end. That, and not only that, that sustainable is even beyond Ramadan. So Islam, the Islamic law, the Sharia provides also the kind of how to sustain that, so that in the coming Shawwal, we also do the 6-day fast, all right? So how to sustain beyond Shawwal. So as far as the religion is concerned, our Islam provides the means how to sustain that. So it's up to us. If follow what our religion prescribes, then inshallah we'll be able to sustain.
Amen.
Thank you.
Maybe if there are other comments from Sister Dr. Lihanna and Rauda for the question, I think it's a very important question.
Please welcome. Dr. Lihanna.
Well, I'm looking at it more from the human ability to delay gratification, right? But that's the training that that I was talking about just now, like what Ustaz Emeritus said just now. You know, after your sahur, you will now keep thinking about food, which means you have lost the spirits of Ramadan, you have lost track, but also perhaps because perhaps this is also a concern that we have to see as a community now, as a society now, in contemporary society. Is this going to be even more evident, you know, more of an issue this coming time, because we seem to not be able to delay gratification as a society. We're not teaching our children that it's okay to wait. And there are times when you need to wait. We teach them to saum, for example. Yes, we do. A lot of the parents are teaching the children to fast before they actually teach the children to salat, which is a different issue altogether, which is something that I have a big issue with, but you know, something different altogether. But how do they teach them? They teach them, okay, if you if you fast, I will give you this. You know, we tag that to a reward system that is even more excessive than what is required. So we're not teaching ourselves, our children, the next generation, that fasting is really about being closer to Allah. Ramadan, so you don't need to fast. We can do a lot of these things that will make it closer to Allah. But then we link this, you know, but then we tend to lose sight of that thing, and we're training our children the other way around. So hopefully, inshallah, with this forum, we'll at least start talking about this again. You know, I know you are all, you know, this is like talking to the converted, but perhaps just something that we can start talking with our friends, with our families, with our students, with our colleagues, you know, to just get this conversation rolling, and then start people thinking about, even if we are training our children to fast, what are we actually training them for? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lihanna, for your sharing answer. We got one question from Brother Muhammad Sazani Masri. The question is how to get spiritually and intellectually closer to the Quran, especially in Ramadan, and continue beyond. So I think this question is very related to Dr. Rauda.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nik Saiful Azizi. Okay, I'm very humbled actually to respond to any of the question, realizing that I'm the most junior one here. In relation to the question addressed by Dr. Muhammad Shazani Masri, it seems that it has some relationship with the previous question being addressed by Datuk Hamidun. And I believe it is more to spark our mind to think and to share the solution based on our observations and our knowledge. And it is very interesting to highlight that both questions is related to one aspect, that is istiqamah, steadfast, right? So how to maintain istiqamah until the end of the Ramadan. Even within the Ramadan itself, we can see people has been tested. And later on, we will try to relate it with the Quran, especially after the Ramadan end. So when we talk about may I address a little bit on istiqamah first, Prof. Aziz? Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So when we talk about istiqamah, then we will see there are some tips on how to maintain istiqamah in relation to the natural instinct of human being, whereby all human beings are granted with three kinds of strength, isn't it? It is a quwwah aqliyah, quwwah ghadabiyah, and quwwah shahwiyah. Is the strength of the rational, the strength of the emotion, as well as the last desire and instinctual soul, as we mentioned earlier. So if we take a look at the response by Datuk Osman Bakar, which is very much related to the first quwwah aqliyah, the rational strength, is that when a person managed to maintain the quwwah aqliyah that has been granted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will be in wasatiyah manner. So this quwwah, this three quwwah could be ifrat, could be extreme, exaggerating in its positiveness, in its negativeness, and it could be moderate, wasatiyah in terms of its management. The best is, of course, the one who managed to this quwwah, this three strength with wasatiyah. Then we can be an istiqamah person in whatever deeds that we are doing, including reciting the Quran. And then the first part is on the quwwah aqliyah, when a person is exaggerating in its rational, where Allah SWT has granted him with aqal, with kebijaksanaan, with wisdom, but they are exaggerating in using it, not following the guidance of Allah SWT in the Quran and the Sunnah. They could be a deceiver because they are so smart. It's like the shaitan and iblis. They're very smart, and we recognize that. But because of not obeying the command of Allah, they have strayed. They have went astray, and they brought other creatures to also went astray against Allah SWT, including the human being and the jinn. And then if the person is too much exaggerating in terms of his negativeness, there could be an ignorance. They did not use their aqal accordingly, the way Allah SWT commanded them. So this is against what has been told and what has been also shared by Datuk Osman Bakar. It is very significant that we need to manage our aqal properly, need to have a good knowledge so that we can maintain istiqamah. The second aspect is the quwwah ghadabiyah, the anger strength, the strength of the anger. Angry emotion is also a strength by Allah SWT. It's a gift of Allah SWT. A person who is exaggerating in their emotional, they will be an emotional person that can lead to to many spiritual and psychological diseases. We know that. But the person who ignore their emotional aspect will be a coward. A person who manage this ghadabiyah, the word ghadab is actually anger, right? The person who manage the anger properly in wasatiyah, they could lead one to have a strong enthusiasm, or what do we call it? A strong eagerness to perform jihad and da'wah for the sake of Allah SWT. But those who are extremely behind, they will be coward. They will be afraid. They will be scared of many aspects in this life other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the third quwwah is the shahawiyah. Of course, we know this is related to the lust, to the desire. If a person is very extreme in following their lust and desire, they will go astray along the way. They will commit all the haram and the wrongdoings because they couldn't manage their shahawat properly and accordingly. But the person who disregard it totally will be important. Who go against their natural shahwat will become barren. So we have to manage it in wasatiyah. Then we'll be able to be istiqamah. And when we are able to be istiqamah, we can see that by the end of Ramadan, there will still a lot of saf in the masjid. They can, if they can manage these three quwwah accordingly, and after even the end of Ramadan to the Shawwal and beyond, they will still istiqamah in reciting the Quran. I think that is a very short answer, as much as I could I'm sorry for the time taken. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Very good, sister. Can I just add one thing, Dr. Nick? To answer this, I think that as Dr. Rauda mentioned, the two questions are interrelated. I think, and the question of Dr. Hamidun is actually a very deep question. It hides behind it a whole lot problem. I can say a problem of the Muslim mind, actually, problem of the Muslim personality, the Muslim. Because it's related to intentions, motivations, objectives, emotions, habits, attitudes. These things all become not only in the, let's say, talk in the context here in Malaysia or anywhere you go in the Muslim world, you will see this type of mazahir or manifestations. In fact, after Ramadan, you will see more worse things. People will resort, many will go back to the same behavior which was before Ramadan. And it's not only about the habits of food or praying the rituals, but doing other things, other crimes. Other things, that's why in the end, if you do studies, you will find maybe to some categories of people, Ramadan doesn't make any change. It's just a matter of 30 days fasting, refraining from food, from all these things, and when Ramadan finishes, before maybe he is worse than how he was in pre-Ramadan. So the issue is from this perspective, I think there is something related to tarbiyah ruhiyah, means to tarbiyah ruhiyah, to tarbiyah imaniyah, the power of faith itself, of iman itself, how it changes the mind or the suluk or the behavior, tarbiyah ruhiyah. It's also related to our tarbiyah in the family, as Sister Lihanna mentioned. What ecosystem or what culture or what environment we create to see different behavior, to see different attitude, to see different habit in Ramadan and post-Ramadan. Are we doing this? Are we ready? Do we have that type of tarbiyah as parents or family or schools, or we create that type? Because in the end, as Prof. Osman mentioned, if things are not changing in the awareness, in the deep knowledge, in the deep awareness in aql, and then the soul itself is having that transformation and change, you cannot expect changes in behavior, and you will see these things every Ramadan and until mashallah time. That's why the rapture and the change need to happen if we want to see different behavior, mosques full, or good behavior, or istiqama, or good leadership, or goodness based on Islamic religion and ethics. We need to have that change in the mind and the soul, and that's why tarbiyah is crucial. Tarbiyah nafsiyah, tarbiyah ijtima'iyah, tarbiyah ruhiyah, tarbiyah aqliyah. We need to, I think, renew in our techniques, ways of these types of tarbiyah. Then I think we can see changes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof, and all our scholars today. Inshallah, respected brothers, professors, brothers and sisters, we are going to 4 p.m. I think some of us are going back. So let us end our session today. Let us pray to Allah to make our event, our life more blessed, more sejahtera, peaceful and harmonious. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma ja'al jam'ana hadha jam'an marhuma wa tafarruqana min ba'dihi tafarruqan ma'suma wa la taj'al fina shaqiyyan wa la mahruma. Allahumma innaka 'afuwun karimun tuhibbul 'afwa fa'fu 'anna. Allahumma innaka afuwun karim tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anna. Oh Allah, you are forgiving and love forgiveness, so forgive us. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Thank you, Prof.